Yeah. Yes.
Regarding your domestic reform agenda, I wanted to ask about specific tax and regulatory issues, one of each in the automotive sector. Is the Lee government taking a look at reforms to engine displacement taxes further than those contemplated in the chorus? And also, how extensive is the regulatory power of the Lee government as it sees it in the area of auto insurance providers?
Well, I'm not very good at the engine mechanics and that issue very well. Actually, I know there is an issue, and we have the Korea representative for FTAs here with us. Mr. Lee may just say a few words on that issue.
Yes, Korean government will ensure the auto provisions, especially auto tax provisions stipulated in the Chorus FTA, will be implemented. So there will be a change in our auto engine displacement tax system. So it will be implemented duly in line with the provisions of the Chorus FTA.
Yes.
Okay, Tom. Good afternoon. My name's Tom Pally. I'm a Washington-based economist. I'd like to ask you a big picture question. In your talk, you started off by talking about Korea's declining growth, and you pointed to the decline in fixed capital formation. And it's the biggest component of the decline over the last decade. Now, it seems to me that there are two interpretations, or actually three, but I'm only going to give you two, and I would like you to sort of comment on them. One interpretation is that there's some problem with Korea's business environment, and that seems to be the focus of the policy agenda that you've outlined to try and improve Korea's business environment. Another interpretation is that Korean investment is being displaced to China. It strikes me that I'd like to know what is the impact of the Chinese economy and China's development on Korea, what policy challenges that poses to you. And it strikes me, if I those two hypotheses that I've just put out there, it doesn't seem that there's been any deterioration in Korea's business environment. So it's hard to say why the business environment would have contributed to the decline in investment. On the other hand, there's pretty clear evidence that China is attracting a lot of investment, and that would both explain why there's a lot of Korean outbound FDI, because I think there's a lot of Korean investment taking place in China that would previously have taken place within your borders. And additionally, there's a decline in inbound FDI because FDI that would previously have gone to Korea is now going to China. So where does China fit in the economic policy that you've been talking about?
Yeah. I'm very glad you say that you didn't see much deterioration in business environment in Korea. If that is the case, I would still argue that relative terms, it has been deteriorating. Look at what's happening in France. Look at what's happening even in Germany. In this globalized world, you are competing with the rest of the world, and unless we do proceed on these deregulations, then we'll lose. Now, in addition, I would say that some of outgoing the industries and firms from Korea to China is a part of natural process of development. And we cannot stay on these labor-intensive industries and they keep the competitiveness. So I would consider some of the, substantial portion of outgoing investment is okay. However, some of the outgoing investments are made because of the deterioration of the environment. For example, during the last two governments, the entrepreneurship was not very much welcomed and encouraged. The president this new president, first thing he did was he publicly announced that he would change the rule of using the VIP rooms in the airports. Up until then, only the bureaucrats, high-ranking senior government officials were supposed to use the VIP room. But then the president said, why not the leading businessmen, even small and medium industry business entrepreneurs? They are the ones who do the works. And so we should allow them to use them, and they should respect them. So we did. This is, in a way, it's a symbolic gesture, but I think it indicates, the importance of entrepreneurship, which was discouraged, rather, during the last 10 years. And there was no effort to respect businessmen and the entrepreneurs. So if you do that, I think you can expect substantial increase in investment. Even today, this government is only 50 days old. But knowing that this government will improve the business environment, we already have, according to survey, the substantially increased plant and equipment investment intentions. And also, actually, we have done, up until now, without changing anything else, we already have many new FDI deals made. And there is sign that FDI is picking up. So I do think that there is a substantial room for improvement in making our business environment more friendly and more market-oriented.
But
Yeah.
But what about the China question?
Yeah.
And maybe let me add another note to that. You've been, one thing I did not mention in introducing you, you've been heavily involved in lots of dialogue with other Asian countries about the evolution of regional economic cooperation in Asia. Korea has negotiated FTAs with ASEAN. You're going to Tokyo. You may resume talks with Japan. Comment on the earlier question about the competitive position of Korea vis-a-vis China, but also what you see by way of future development of East Asian regional cooperation. Do you see what amounts to an East Asian trade agreement developing, so there will be an East Asian trade area? What's the kind of outlook in the region, particularly, I might say, if the United States really does drop out of the trade policy business, as the recent vote in the House of Representatives suggested it might?
Yeah. Fred, as well as I do, there have been various initiatives in East Asia, in the East Asian region, cooperating among themselves. Chiang Mai Initiative is one of them, and Chiang Mai Initiative, has been developing, in my view, much slower pace than I would like to see. But it has been expanding. It has been multilateralizing it, and also it's expanding the volume of the swap arrangements. And I would like to see this Chiang Mai Initiative moves much faster toward maybe the regional monetary facility. I don't see why American friends and the friends elsewhere, the other areas, see this kind of initiative in a negative thinking, because as long as the mode of operation is consistent with existing multilateral institutions, that is the IMF, I don't think it can be a problem. It'll be complementary and supplementary rather than competitive. Actually, I was in Chile, Santiago, some time ago, and people, when we talked about this initiative, I said, well, you have, that region has reserves, and so you can take care of your problem. How about us? I said, well, this will help you. Why? Because if we take care of our own regional problems, then the limited resources available at the IMF can be used for you. So I said, as long as we have the same modus operandi of this strategy. But in that context, so I would like to see the Chiang Mai initiative move faster. But that's a slow process. And then this exchange rate coordination area. Because, this region is still the politics dominate, even the, interregional relations. And so Korea, Japan, for example. We had this Korea-Japan negotiation started. We had the 6th negotiation, but it stalled, mostly for political reasons. And this is only region. These 3 countries, economically speaking, very deeply integrated, only by market forces, no institutional arrangement. We don't have, FTA or anything. Now, with the new leadership, I think President Lee will this time, and he talked about, the past apology, and he said he was no longer interested in that, and we'll get on the real issues. And I suppose there is possibility that 3 countries will work closer than before. But even then, I think having, exchange rate coordination, sometimes you have to accept pure pressure, but I don't think countries in this region is ready for that yet. So I would see in more intermediate to long-term thing than immediate thing. And then the FTA also. Of course, there's studies going on. It started, actually, the government and the research institute and the industry people are working together for 3 countries to explore the feasibility of establishing 3-country FTA. But it's only just a starting stage, and also I think it will be a more intermediate-term process. What I would like to see personally is that Northeast Asia have this FTA, and Southeast Asians already have it. If you to merge it, then it becomes East Asian FTA. But it's very easy to say, but as I said, because of political reality, it's not that easy. And but the process just got started.
Okay, go in the back, and then up here at the front, 2 folks at the mics.
Barry Wood, Voice of America. Could I ask you, what's your analysis of the rice price dramatic increase, and what's that mean in terms of getting rice to the north?
Yeah.
And you didn't mention the North at all. How does the North fit in to the economic planning of the new government?
Yeah. Fortunately, this North Korea is outside my purview of my council. So, well, rice issue, I think it's a very intriguing issue. But I don't have any hard research on this. But you know that Indonesia and China have already have the restrictions on export of the rice and the agricultural products, expecting that prices will go up further. And so rice, and it is so that is one factor. Another factor is that you had bad crop in Australia and other part of the world, so that is another factor. But that involves more not rice, but more agricultural products. But okay, some people say it is the more ethanol and I'm talking about not the other agricultural products. But some others say it is because Chinese and Indians now start to eat so much meat, and therefore the fertilizer and the feed, animal feed stock price is going up. I really don't know much, but the only thing I'm very sure is that some of these countries have this export ban and then even export tax. I think China has the export tax on the agricultural, the product export. And so, but anyway, this is the current situation. So since the agricultural product price went up, I suppose the food assistance to North will be affected by it. I suppose each country has certain budget for giving foods, but when price going up and the quantity has to be reduced. So I don't know how much that will impact on this humanitarian assistance, so forth, but it will affect. And I hope this global, the food price is a short-term cyclical thing rather than structural.
All right, thanks. Kevin Hall with McClatchy Newspapers. Sorry to ask another North Korea question, and I'll throw you an easier one after that, too. Yeah. On the North, the Wall Street Journal has been all over the Bush administration of late for trust not verify and suggesting that they're willing to take a deal at any cost. Do you feel are you concerned, do you feel that the administration, I realize this isn't your direct purview, but that the Bush administration is going soft, as some are suggesting, on North Korea? And do you anticipate, in the economic realm, closer ties or any sort of expansion of the, to date, very small efforts of joint border projects and things of that sort? Then the easy question, you were here in 1990, in the early 90s in the high watermark of trade, NAFTA, Uruguay round, different atmosphere altogether. How do you find, as in your academic hat, how do you find it coming back and seeing such a different environment about trade here in Washington these days?
Well, actually, I chat with Fred very briefly outside this room before lunch. You know, ideally, we would like to see U.S. exert leadership in providing public goods the global community needs. You did exert leadership after the World War II. You established, got the Bretton Woods system, and to maintain the system, you had the Marshall Plan and Dutch Plan and all institutions, the aid programs for developing countries. And the system sustained up until early 70s, and the world economic power constellation started to change. And today, look at what's happening in DDA and in WTO, and this the global international financial architecture area. I really would like to see really the strong leadership exerted by the United States, but we don't see that. On the contrary, you're going the other way. And I'm very concerned about it, and particularly after your presidential election. Actually, when we were in Wall Street, in New York, some Wall Street people worried about the possibility of xenophobic, what in his term as the new trends that in the United States. So this area, I'm not very satisfied with what's happening in this country, particularly in the trade area, and this financial area too. Look at what is this subprime mortgage thing, crisis. You know, apparently the global community needs different or strengthened financial architecture than what we have today, because we are living in a completely different world than the world we lived in the Bretton Woods era. And so I suppose that means that global community together should do more about reforming IMF and having more closer cooperation among multilateral institutions, even BIS and the IMF, and for example. And in addition to this regional, I mean the global community level endeavor, of course, you have to do more at the national level by strengthening the prudent regulatory and supervisory infrastructure at the national level. And then at the regional level, you need to more cooperation. So you need all these three tiers efforts made together. And the top level, I don't see much is happening, so I'm quite discouraged about this current situation. And that's the easy part. And more difficult part is about North Korea. You know, the current government, the basic stance toward North is denuclearization. Once North Korea commits itself to denuclearize, by realizing that that is the best way to improve the nation's economy and to improve people's living condition, then South Korean government will be very, very serious about engaging in very active cooperation with the North, economic cooperation. So this denuclearization is the basic thing. But that doesn't mean that we won't have any humanitarian assistance even before this all denuclearization issue is removed. That much I can say.
Okay, two questions in the back and then up here.
I'm Bertrand Renaud, formerly from the World Bank. Dr. SaKong, it's good to
Yes,
see you again.
so nice to see you.
I have a question regarding the strategic perspective of the new administration on the financial sector. What are your priorities in the domestic financial sector?
What exactly you have in mind?
In terms of the governance of the financial system, in the previous 5-6 years, maybe earlier, you had fairly strict regulation about investing in banks by large business groups. What kind of competitive environment have you articulated some new views, or are the existing views a framework that you can work with?
Yeah. Actually, according to our existing banking law and the antitrust law, actually, the large conglomerates are prevented from owning bank shares more than 4%. This government is committed to make some adjustment there. That doesn't mean that we'll allow, let's say, top 5 or top 10 conglomerates immediately own banks. No. But what we are saying is that we, make the regulation flexible so that some funds of non-financial institutions can invest in the financial sector. You know, Korea is a very, very exceptional country where almost all commercial banks, the majority shareholders of almost all commercial banks are foreigners. More than 50%, 60% of shares of major commercial banks owned by foreigners, except one major commercial bank, which is held by the government. That's because it's bailed out during the financial crisis. So we will actually privatize that bank as well. So what we are saying is, you see, up to today, because it's a very complicated historical legacy, but I have to get into to explain this everything. But in any case, because of historical legacy, we have antitrust law, which specifically focused on firm size. If you're a big firm, you are not allowed to do many things, which are allowed to other small and medium firms and maybe bigger foreign firms. So that's why in my remark I said that we try to provide a level playing field to all firms of all sizes and both domestic and foreign. In other words, what we are doing is trying to provide a level playing field for the big firms and large conglomerates, instead, rather than giving special privileges to them. So it's just a level playing field. Korean conglomerates, even the largest one, to put together, they're still smaller than some of the leading corporations in the world. But because of their size itself, as if the bigness itself is badness, bad. So current law is made that way. So we try to do something about it. That doesn't mean that we, so that's one thing I would say. And regarding, again, financial sector, the deregulation, of course, my council, again, will deal, as I said, this regulation exists across industries. Manufacturing and healthcare, delivery, and medical service areas, and tourism, and finance. Finance is important area for deregulation. Actually, my council will engage in at least 2 or 3 meetings this year and deregulate there. The basic approach there is, again, we'll go toward what is called more principles-based supervision and regulation rather than rules-based. Because, we are, as of now, it's very, very strict rules-based. And so the asset management of some of these financial institutions have not enough leeways. And so we will try to reduce some of the rules and so that the financial institutions will have leeways. Of course, to do that, of course, we have to upgrade our supervisory capability. So training and retraining there is one thing, but I think we are really even are going to allow foreign experts to come into the financial sector. Actually, we revised the law so that even the civil servants now, foreigners can be Korean civil servants now. For the first time, so of course we don't have many yet, but at least it's a good beginning. So we're that much determined, and the financial sector is one area of our focus. But the dilemma here is, actually, I talked about this with the Wall Street leaders. After Enron, what did you have? You had this Sarbanes and Oxley, right? And then after this subprime mortgages, I think I can already see some of the backlash of having stricter regulations. Of course, prudent regulations are a necessary thing, but there is danger that you may go the other way, too far. For this, so once this happens in this country, again, I go back to Korea and say, well, we wanted to liberalize and then let's, go more toward the principles-based rather than rules-based. Say, look at the United States. Why they're doing that and why we should liberalize, and maybe they know what they're doing. And so it's a dilemma, and really, only thing I can see is that we should upgrade our supervisory capabilities. Actually, I was on my way to Davos, and I talked with a friend there too. I stopped over in London. I talked with the 3 Lord Mayors of London to share their views on this. And I asked them this question to them too, and they said they still think their system is better. Their principles-based regulation is better than very strict rules-based. But in any case, since we are almost 100% rules-based, the direction will be toward principles-based.
Okay, Jacob Kierkegaard from the Peterson Institute. I'd like your comments on a topic that you didn't say anything about, but that one that I would suggest, I hope I would even go as far as to say that, is on the government's national economic agenda, namely that of immigration. Now, obviously, everyone will probably be aware that Korea has one of the lowest shares of foreign-born population in the OECD and probably in the world. And at the same time, as you showed, the growth, the share of growth coming from labor input is declining, and I think it's fair to say will continue to decline for the foreseeable future, even if you're successful in, as you said, expanding the hitherto underutilized female labor force. So I was just wondering if the new government has any new initiatives in place for on the immigration area.
Yeah, we do. Actually, as soon as I go back, our second council meeting is scheduled to be held on 30th of this month, and one of the agenda is dealing with this dual nationality issue and the opening up more the immigration, the market. We already have substantial number of blue-collar foreign workers, but at this time we are very much interested in opening up more for skilled and technical. So we will make our visa laws and relevant laws revised so that they can easily come to Korea and become even the citizens. So actually this is being still discussed, but that will be on our agenda in the coming meeting on April 30th. So we are looking into that area. By the way, you said we are one of the exceptional countries in that regard, but I think we are doing a little bit better than Japanese, but that doesn't mean much. That doesn't mean much, as I said earlier. So whenever my colleagues come to me, that we're on particular financial matters, they say, if we improve this, we do better than Japanese. I said that doesn't mean anything, because they are far behind us in general terms in financial areas. So that doesn't comfort us. But anyway, we'll look into the area.
Dr. SaKong. Stir, Korea Economic Institute. Dr. SaKong, would you permit a question on macroeconomic policy? Since that hasn't been touched on so far. I guess Korea is facing rising inflationary pressures, but also short-term growth outlook that's deteriorating a bit. How do you see the relative priorities, and what do you think the best approach is?
Yeah. Actually, we are not very fortunate to start this new government in this not very favorable global economic environment. But considering the worsened global economic environment, my council and our government has to work even harder. Because by deregulating fast enough, by reforming public sector fast enough, you can enhance growth potential to that extent, right? So that gives us another reason why we have to work hard. Actually, when President Lee Myung-bak ran his campaign, he pledged what he called 747 pledge, economic pledge. 747 is not Boeing 747. 7 means enhancing growth, economic growth potential to 7%. Once you do that, arithmetically, you reach per capita income of $40,000. Double up, right? Is grow 7% per annum in 10 years' time. So that will put Korea into the G7 category. So that's what 747 means. So it was at least pledge. And that doesn't mean that every year, regardless of cyclical situation, we will grow at 7%. But what we are saying is we will increase growth potential to 7%, which I think, as I said, is a feasible goal. So this year, because of the unfavorable global economic situation, we know that 7% growth is not really possible. But then I think we should, once we accelerate our reform efforts, then I suppose we can do better than otherwise, considering the current economic condition. So that's one thing I want to say. And then in addition, again, you know, the tax reduction is one thing. And the currently debate is going on in Seoul. Since we have the budgetary surplus, and to utilize that budgetary surplus as a means of fiscal stimulus. Of course, that involves revising the laws and so forth. So there is a debate going on, particularly since some of Koreans, even among the policy-making circle, are concerned with the possibility of inflation accelerated. So the debate is there, and I think the best thing is we'll reduce tax rate as fast as possible, and reform package implemented. You know, at the first, for example, at our first council meeting, which was held about a few weeks ago, you know what we did was this. As of today, government designates certain industrial sites. After the government designate this area to be industrial sites, but actually to establish this industrial after this designation, you know how long it takes? It used to take about 3 to 4 years. 3 to 4 years, and for 48 months. And then we worked on this and tried to find out why this happens. And we reduced the waiting period to 6 months by accelerating some of the bureaucratic processes, some necessary process, and then getting rid of some of the red tapes. So reduce from 48 months to 6 months. Once we do this kind of things, you know, you can expect there will be more investments without doing anything else, macro policy-wise. And then we have various restrictions in Seoul metropolitan area, which prevent particularly big businesses, even foreign businesses, invest in the Seoul metropolitan area for, this balanced growth of the, nationwide idea. But the thing is, once you restrict investment in metropolitan Seoul area, there's no guarantee that that investment will go to local areas, may go to China or some state of Alabama. So this is at least our thinking. And in this age of globalization, balanced national growth is very valued high priority, national priority, but the means of achieving that should be different in this different global environment.
Okay, we're right at our closing hour. One last question, make it quick, and then we'll close.
Dr. SaKong, my name is Young-Won Keel. I'm with Georgetown University as a visiting scholar. Now, are you planning any big events like what happened 10 years ago, for instance, when DJ Kim became president? Now his political and economic plan that he had, and bringing World Bank to Korea, saying that the democracy and the market economy go hand in hand. Now that was a kind of eye-catching event, and Lee Myung-bak as president and also CEO experience he had. Is there any big event that you are planning to have in Seoul in the next 6 months or 1 year, to overcome this challenge of economic resuscitation?
I don't know if big events can resuscitate our economy. We'll certainly do that. Yeah. Well, now Korea is becoming a popular place to have some multilateral meetings and so forth. The only problem is that our absolute price level is very, very high. So many Korean golfers go to Japan to play golf, actually, because we now have very serious current account, the current account deficit, not current account, the service sector deficit. Although the commodity balance is still a little bit positive, but because of huge service account deficit, we are going to suffer a substantial current account deficit this year. But because of the price levels, Seoul is not considered a very favorable place. But still there are various occasions. But we don't plan to have that kind of these events. But I will tell you that the World Economic Forum, Regional Economic Forum, will be held in Seoul next year, September next year. Actually, World Economic Forum. Schwab was very much interested in holding, so we said we'll host it, and so we'll hold that in September next year.
Dr. SaKong, we thank you very much. We appreciate your being with us again. We wish you and your new government the best of luck. Good luck for a successful Korean economy. We'll try to do our best from this side to get the FTA advanced and strengthen the relationship. We'll look forward to working with you very closely over the next few days, few years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.